Hello and happy late New Year. I hope the New Year hasn't treated you too badly. As for me, I spent my whole Christmas and New Year stuck in bed because I got sick with an unnamed virus. So, not the most ideal way to start 2024. Although, now with my sickness gone, I have a good feeling about this year with big plans in the future. With the new year, I had done the old tradition of making a New Year's resolution. While my resolution is more of a loose list of plans I have for this year, I do have goals that are more centered on myself. However, the resolutions I want to talk about are related to my art, most of which are ongoing/remake fan comics and one original comic. If anyone is from my other social media platforms, I tend to start a comic and then completely drop it after a while. It's not intentional. My brain just has a hard time focusing on one project at a time, and next thing I know, I've started another comic with another idea. But this year, I hope to drop almost all my comics and focus on 3, with the exception of my short comics. Like I mentioned before, I want to start on an original comic for this year, or at least script it out. What I had in mind was a short story ranging from 30 to 40 pages. It's been one of my dreams to make an original comic, and I would like it to give it my best shot. Of course, I've made comics in the past, but they usually take too long for me to finish or I drop them, which is why probably most experienced comic artists suggest starting out small, which is probably why I finished so few and exactly why I want to start out small. I have a rough idea of what I might make, but I also want to remind myself that whatever I make is just a stepping stone to something bigger. I want to have fun making the story. I have ideas of making a fantasy story or even a short horror story, but whatever it'll be, I want to make sure I have fun with it too. I'll talk more about my original comic later, but besides that, I'm also aiming to finish my fan comics. My fan projects have also been nothing but fan art of my favorite characters with little to no original characters or OCs. So I would like to see if I can finish a series that's built from the ground up. With the challenge I have set for myself, I mostly want to see improvement in my art and my storytelling. However, before I start on my comics, I want to look back on my fan work and see why they fell apart. As much as I love my old projects, I lost interest or got confused by my own writing. When I finish my ongoing series, I want to be consistent and conclude the story in a satisfying way. One of my first fan comics was Nightmares We Can Now See, and it was what originally built my platforms. This comic was based on the game Detroit Become Human, with the main character being Gavin Reed. And no, I will not elaborate who he is in the game or why he is my favorite. Moving on, I still get messages from readers who loved the first run before I discontinued it. It was my second try at making a series, and I do look back at the experience fondly, and I love the concept. The concept was good, but the actual story lacked. It was only an idea with nothing fleshed out. The Nightmares We Can Now See is my taunting reminder of a story getting away from me. This fan comic was supposed to be a thriller mystery with a sprinkle of horror. It was a daring project to take on as a first-time writer and starting artist. The main mystery of the story was poorly thought out. I literally made it up page by page, so the ending result had no nuance or foreshadowing. The basic synopsis of the comic was a murder mystery of manifested monsters of people's fear. These monsters lived in another realm where they would feast on people's fears, and the only one who could see these monsters were people called seers. I know, top tier writing right there, and our one and only Detective Reed being one of these people. But not only could he see them, he could communicate and touch them. He also believed that when he slept, he transferred over to their realm, but as a fearless entity. These nightmares were able to grow more powerful as they feasted on people's fears, but they always stayed in their realm, also trapped behind a thin veil. But one day, our detective is called to a crime scene where he finds a mauled victim with impossible claw and bite marks littered all over the body, and said victim was coincidentally scared of dogs. The story revolved around figuring out why they were able to cross realms and how Gavin is connected to the mysterious shadow figure that insists that he was the key. However, the more I continued the story, I realized that the side romance plot was slowly becoming the main story, and my poorly thought out plot was starting to bite me in the butt. I knew if I kept going, the story would have gotten convoluted and confusing at some point. I literally have a part in the story where one house was investigated twice as a twist in the investigation. The house wasn't connected to anything bigger than narrative. I just thought it would be clever to revisit a location, but it was done with no reason other than that. I was in high school when I started the series, and that will be my only defense. The series also lacked horror, as I showed everything too fast, that horror being the monster designs. I made up the designs while making the pages, so I had a small amount of designs on hand and not a lot of time to think about them. I won't lie, I loved some of the designs, but I think I could have been more creative with others. Most of the monster designs lacked in horror and made no sense. It didn't help that they were always fully shown, leaving nothing to the imagination. The fear of the unknown was the only part I had for the fear factor, and it wasn't even executed well. The whole story was fun at the beginning, but as time went by, I was trying to make a story make sense by fitting pieces that didn't fit, and it became draining on me. All in all, the story would have been more stable if I just planned the comic out more, which is what I hope to do with the rewrite. The rewrite of the nightmares we can now see, and will hopefully be renamed the Unseen Nightmares. Only time can tell if the rewrite is a success, as I've been working on it in the background, but I have rewritten it so many times that I need to stop writing and start drawing. It's hard not to tweak the story every now and then because I want the story to be perfect, but I also have to forget that the story doesn't have to be perfect, it just needs to be fun. For my other fan comic, I hope to finally finish Freddy Pays Taxes. As the name implies, it's about Freddy, and you probably guessed which one. I had made the FNAF comic about the adventures of Glamrock Freddy and Gregory after they escaped the Pizzaplex. However, Freddy Pays Taxes has become a monster project that I just want to finish. The story follows Freddy and Gregory settling down after they escaped the burning Pizzaplex and try to make a living for themselves. Gregory still has his own problems he needs to overcome, and Freddy is trying his best to be supportive and provide for Gregory. But Michael is mysteriously a spirit attached to Freddy with a mission to make sure his father is really gone. While Michael doesn't know where his father might be, there's a talk about a mass disappearance happening in the surrounding states. What was supposed to be a short story about Freddy getting a part-time job in retail has now expanded to another mystery story, and it's 100% my fault. For some reason, I really want Michael to be in the story with his own storyline with a B-plot, but I accidentally turned it into the main plot that needed more pages to build up and explain said mystery. So this branch-off narrative I added willingly certainly extended the original story with more moving parts that I really wish I left alone. What was supposed to be a short, wholesome story about found family with a little bit of angst on the side became much bigger because I couldn't help myself. I only have myself to blame for this extension. You can probably tell that my stories had a strong start but derailed a bit as it kept going. If you want to see for yourself, you can read the series on my other social media platforms. I recommend on Tumblr because I actually organized it, so link in description. That's why in my future projects, I hope to stick to a more main story and try not to branch too far from the narrative and topple into a confusing mess. I believe an elaborate story can be achieved, but I truthfully need to restrain myself. I'm sensing a pattern. Maybe if I cut some storylines, but the main story stays. Freddy and Gregory coming together to make a found family with Michael. Maybe I need to cut some storylines, but the main story stays. The story of Freddy and Gregory coming together as a found family with Michael. Now back to the most challenging project yet. The mother lode of projects. The most complicated of the three that I want to tackle this year. The original story. This is a big step for me, as you probably gathered. I'm mostly a fan artist, and most of my art is of existing characters that I create stories for. But now I'll create everything from scratch. I have an outline in mind, but it needs more planning. It's a bit hard for me to imagine new characters, not to mention designing one, but I have confidence in myself to make something. While being a fan artist lets me focus on the story by putting my favorite characters in fun scenarios or making alternate universes, it does little in the creation of character and world building, as they are mostly already made. Of course, I want to expand my favorite character's backstory, with every artist's favorite trope of adding trauma. However, if you make a story, the ideal way is to make sure not every character is traumatized, and they all work well together. So everything I make for this project will be original. I am a fan artist through and through, and I know my original art would perform lower and take longer to gain traction. Even so, I really want to start and prove to myself mostly that I can make something that belongs entirely to me and is entertaining to read, which is why I think I might make videos on what I think the story might be. Rambling about my upcoming story might help me figure it out, and is also a great video idea, so it's a win-win scenario. Though I don't want to make any promises because I know I'll lose interest if I don't keep it casual. Again, weird brain thing. Anyways, that's it for this year's plans. Well, I do have one more plan. This year, I would like to try YouTube as well. I mostly want to start a YouTube channel to show off my projects, and also want to try new things like story times or redesign videos or anything. I've seen other art channels do it for some time, and it looks fun, and I want to challenge myself in a new medium. I want to try something other than fan art, really. I don't have a fixed upload schedule, and I hope to at least upload every week. And as you can see now, my new speed draw is a bit more stable. The other one was just crazy. I didn't know you had to keep your canvas still. It's a lot to assign myself with work and home life, but I want to explore more avenues to create and share. So here's to the new year, even if it's been a month already. See ya!